yesterday I went out to see my beautician Margie, which meant I had to work quite hard the day before. But I have beautiful fingers and toes.
Twinkly trotters, as they're called in our family.
Yes. Although my toes are not very trotter-like, and my fingers don't twinkle, but they do shine.
Very nice.
They twinkled at Christmas, and I had to take issue with her at Christmas. I said, that twinkly polish that you put on my fingers at Christmas took some chipping off. And she said, yeah, she laughed. I said, well, you might have warned me.
Can't even get some industrial equipment in.
Well, quite. I did have to get industrial equipment. Exactly right. Industrial strength acetone to get it off, which is another thing that isn't good for you.
Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show.
There you are.
Here I am indeed. Right, let me just...
I got a very strange message. It said the host... What did it say? The host has another meeting in progress. And it
I did. Somebody didn't turn up at 11 o'clock and I forgot to turn their meeting off. So,
okay.
So let me just gather myself.
Threw me a bit.
Yes. But I am here and I am all prepped.
Are you gathered? Can't be paralysed by fear of failure, or you will never push yourself.
And I'm on that week in Create the Impossible as well, the failure week. So,
good.
That's very fortuitous, serendipitous.
Pertinent.
Yes, exactly. All those words.
Yes.
Absolutely throwing it down here. It's been throwing it down all night, and I woke up this morning and I came up to boil my kettle, and halfway through boiling, the power went off, which is absolutely, if the power's going to go off, that is absolutely the worst time.
Yes, it is, because you were so close to a cup of tea or coffee,
exactly.
You mean?
Exactly. But it came back on again very shortly afterwards, so we're grateful for those small mercies. Okay.
And what was Elias saying about a surge protector? Did he seem to imply... I don't know what you were seeming to imply.
Okay, so basically when you have storms here, the electric flickers quite often. So so you need a surge protector for your computer and your router, in fact. And I do have a surge. And that Elias actually isn't Elias. It's Stella who acts on Elias's behalf. So
indeed, yes.
So I do have surge protectors, and it's all good. So
I certainly have one in my travel kit. Interestingly.
Yeah, because you just don't know. And what I often do is actually unplug my computer, because I leave it on charge most of the time, but I like to run it down at least sort of once every couple of days. So I just unplug it and let it run down.
My new one has such a gorgeous battery, I hardly need to have it plugged in at all, which is a complete change.
Yeah, because the old Macs, they do rely on their electricity for... Anyway,
yes. Well, they do.
I can't actually believe we're talking about it.
Well, except that it's part of being a digital nomad, isn't it?
It is, yes. We all know about surge protectors. I bet most British people haven't even heard about them. Don't even know what they are. Right, where were we? So, your week then.
Okay. Do you remember an event we ran at Shakespeare's The Globe called Women Talk Money?
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because I had completely forgotten it until various people have been mentioning it recently and saying...
Well, let me tell you, it was 2006, so no wonder you've forgotten it, because that is 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And on the day, Janet Swift was going to be one of our speakers, but she had Janet has health challenges, and that day she had a near-death experience and had to be ambulanced off, and her husband phoned me at 6 o'clock in the morning to say she wasn't going to be there. She was having a life or death operation. But that's actually not what I'm going to tell you about. I met a woman that day who was on the nearest table to us, and she's been a client, and she's been a colleague, and she's become a friend. And last Friday, we discovered last week during the snow that we were both digital nomading within 25 miles of one another. So we met up in a pub and had lunch. And even though I'm on low carb and she's on zero carb, can you imagine zero carb?
No.
Let me tell you what zero carb means. It means meat and water.
Meat and water?
That's all you eat.
that can't be good for you, surely.
Anyway, so she was on zero carb for January and I'm on low carb. We met in a pub south of Tunbridge Wells where she and her husband was house sitting. And we had fish and chips and apple crumble, neither of which are low carb or zero carb, not even close to low carb, let alone zero carb. And I want to tell you about that. I want to tell you about their digital nomading. They've been to Cornwall for 4.5 months, and next then they were in Tunbridge Wells, then they're going to Northamptonshire, then Yorkshire, then they're going for 3 months in Bulgaria, where they think they might buy a house.
Oh, very nice.
I know. I've got another client who's got a house in Bulgaria, actually, and I've connected them already. And but we had fun comparing notes about digital nomading, particularly something that won't affect you because you're not in the UK and you don't have a car anymore in the UK, I don't think, do you?
No.
One of the biggest problems you have if you're nomading in the UK, i.e. you're of not fixed address, is you have to tell the DVLA where your car is, where you keep your car, so they can send you parking fines. And you have to have an address at which to insure your car. And if your driving license isn't in the address that you actually live, you're subject to a fine if you get caught doing anything. So car issues are a real problem, not if you live abroad, oddly, because if you live abroad and you keep a car in the UK, that's perfectly fine. But if you're in the UK and you haven't got a fixed address, there's no solution to it. So, for instance, the government agencies won't accept the virtual offices as your address. So you basically have to involve a friend or family member, which isn't really, I don't think that's a nice thing to do, because as soon as you then go on record at the DVLA, they immediately sell that to other people. And so your friend starts to get all sorts of junk mail and other posts that would be a burden. So we compared some notes on, the ups and downs of house sitting and the different dogs and what are you going to do about the car? No idea what you're going to do about the car. But I had another day out, basically, is the long and short of the story. That all started in 2006 when we ran that, our most expensive gig ever. It was 347 quid for a day.
So that's what people paid to come?
Yes.
I don't know why I don't remember. I do remember being there. I remember being physically. I remember it was a particularly busy year for me. I did go to all sorts of places. 2006. God, no, that was when we lived in King's Walk. Sarah came back from Australia.
It had to be 347 quid. It had to be 347 quid because the venue was very expensive.
Yeah,
we had lunch there.
I remember that. Yeah,
and a beautiful room up the top that overlooks the Thames. Yeah. And it was just for women that day. And it was a really nice event. Yeah.
But I don't remember what we did there. What was it? It must have been a money gym day. But
it was a money gym day. Well, it was called Women Talk Money. We basically had several, modules. And in fact, that blog post I wrote last night where somebody said, you two have got to get your act together and agree on stage. That was the day that prompted that comment. Because you know how often you'd be at the whiteboard or the projector up the front, basically, doing your diagrams, and I'd be shouting from the back, no, that's not right. And that was the day we drew criticism for that. But anyway, there we go. Yeah. So I'm just still going back to talking about my week. This week I'm trying to only work 50% of each day, either morning or afternoon, because I'm getting some more symptoms that's telling me I mustn't sit at my desk for 8 and 12 and 15 hours a day. It's not good for me. And yesterday I went out to see my beautician, Margie, which meant I had to work quite hard the day before. But I have beautiful fingers and toes.
Twinkly trotters, as they're called in our family.
Yes. Although my toes are not very trotter-like, and my fingers don't twinkle, but they do shine.
Yes, very nice.
They twinkled at Christmas, and I had to take issue with her at Christmas. I said, that twinkly polish that you put on my fingers at Christmas took some chipping off. And she said, yeah, she laughed. I said, well, you might have warned me.
Can't even get some industrial equipment in.
Well, quite. I did have to get industrial equipment. Exactly right. Industrial strength acetone to get it off, which is another thing that isn't good for you.
No. Well, every time you've mentioned that person who criticised us, and I've got a nasty feeling I know who it is. I'm practicing my Michael Neal thoughts are shadows on that quite hard, because I get a twinge of annoyance every time you talk about that woman.
Well, interestingly, I don't think she was right, and I said that in the blog post last night.
Yes, you did. Yeah, very fine.
I don't think she was right, but actually, it's the chalk and cheesiness that makes this work.
Absolutely, I totally agree, and I also feel that I I get a real twinge of annoyance. That's the one thing that manages to wind me up still, is when people criticise when they're not actually doing it themselves. That really bugs me.
A, she was doing it herself, and B, she's dead now, sadly.
Okay. Okay, it was not what I thought it was then.
But she was a professional. She was a total professional, and she was saying basically that we were amateurs, and I think that's fair, actually.
Another nasty word. What was the matter with this person? I know she was a friend of yours, but what was...
There's actually nothing the matter with her. Nothing the matter with her at all. It's a viewpoint. Feedback isn't a problem, Nicola. It's somebody's viewpoint. And we can say, thank you for your opinion. As it happens, I loved her and respected her a lot. But have I changed the way we've done things as a result of her feedback? No.
No.
So, just let it fall off your back, darling.
Yeah, I don't know why it winds me up so much, but it's one of the things that people does. But, people criticising who don't... Well, her
I don't think it wasn't criticism. I didn't receive it as criticism. Right. It's her opinion. Okay.
It's her opinion. That's where I need to make the distinction. I need to change because I do get awfully defensive when I feel like I'm criticised. Yeah. So
I also think that many people would agree with her. It's still an opinion. It doesn't matter if it's one person or 50 people. It's still an opinion. Yeah. And if we could squeeze ourselves into that shaped box, we would have done it. But not only can we not, but we don't want to.
Exactly. Quite right too. Anything else about your week?
No, that's my 3 things.
Oh, my God. Right, my week's been very, very quiet. I've run out of wood. I'm on my last wood. My wood burner is down to its last sort of couple of evenings, I think. And
sorry, I'm confused. What's the connection between quiet and wood?
Well, I was just going to tell you, I'm telling you about my wood because there's bugger all else to tell you.
Okay, yeah, well, quite. My week's been quiet as well, as we will reveal later on. Yeah.
It's been quiet because it's rained all week. It's been, epic rain. I mean, I know we need it, and it will make, as soon as the sun comes out again, the vegetation will go mental, and there will be lots and lots and lots and lots of wildflowers, which I'm really looking forward to. But it's mad because without a car, I can't go anywhere when it's like this. And my friends are all very willing to come and pick me up. And in fact, I did have a nice little trip to Cardamili, the next village along. This was an interesting one. I was hired out by my friend Linda. She said to me, "Can I buy some of your time to give to my friend Anne?" And she said, I said, "No, I don't. Honestly, just take me out for lunch or something. I'll happily spend time with your friend Anne." And I turned up, and Anne is nearly, she's in her 70s, very elegant. Imagine a model in her 70s. That's what Anne looks like. And she's American and comes from a very good family in America. I can't remember exactly where. But I was expecting some really basic stuff, and she had a Mac, thank God, because I really struggle to help anyone on a PC nowadays. But she had a Mac and she had an iPhone, and she had it, and she had this great long list. I've never seen a list so long of quite complex things. They were tolerations, basically, things that annoy her about her Mac. So we had a very pleasant afternoon with a cup of good British tea and cookies, and then my friend Linda just read her book and waited for us. And then she got some very good Bordeaux out, and we had a glass of that. And it was just a very nice afternoon. But she said, I would love to... for you to come back another time. And, I even managed to sort out she had a problem scanning her old grandmother's letters. And I said, "No, you don't do that anymore. You take a picture of them." And she was absolutely blown away that you can take a picture on your phone and upload it straight to Drive into a folder. So it's all categorized and ready because she wants to write a book. So that was quite an interesting
Can you hang on a second? Sorry. Hello. Somebody knocking at my door, I think. Hello. No. Yes, somebody is knocking at my door. Hello. Podcasting. You're making a celebrity appearance in the middle of the podcast. How are you? Marvellous. Talk to you later. Thanks very much. A cup of coffee was delivered.
Sorry? Coffee?
A cup of coffee.
Very nice. So it was just interesting to see that a lot of the problems that she thought she had have been superseded by superior technology.
By tech, absolutely. And so you are a rent-a-geek then, aren't you?
Well, it's an interesting one because I don't want to be rent-a-geek, and I've said to everyone I'm not for hire, but I would happily come and spend some time with you and help you if I mean lunch or dinner or whatever. I don't want to get into the gun for hire per hour thing.
No.
They would be horrified at what I charge per hour.
Absolutely. And I did the same thing when I went round to my bestest friends who are older than me and taught them how to do blogging. Just pay me supper, lovely. Thanks very much. I mean, I'd love to talk about blogging under any circumstances, in any moment at all, always,
But they feel they have to pay you something. So I think, an exchange of energy like a dinner or something is perfectly acceptable.
Yes.
If you get some money thing, it all gets a bit ugh.
I like Linda's role. She took you round and all she had to do was sit and read her book. Lovely.
Yeah. Watching one of her friends helping one of her other friends and getting to know each other in the process. It was a very pleasant.
Nice. Yeah. Nice.
So then the only other thing was Dave's dinner club. We were back in Agios Nikolaos. There's this place that looks like a Greasy Spoon cafe, but they do the best lamb in the oven that's to be had locally. And each little taverna's got their own thing. So Dave's dining club is now going to sample the delights of every taverna in the area. Looking forward to it.
Some friends of mine in London who work in proper jobs in an office, they had a dining club. Oh, it was called Barry's. That's what it was called. It was called Barry's Dining Club. And Barry's Dining Club had, I think, just like Dave, it was named after somebody who suggested it once and then played no role in it, no senior role in it ever again. Yeah. But they also had a mascot, which was a rubber chicken, and the rubber chicken used to go with them to all of the do's.
Oh, I'm going to have to suggest that then.
Well, you need a
something to do with Dave.
Yes. Hang on. What would it be? What do you call it? What do you call those things? What did I just call it?
Mascot.
Mascot. Yes, you have a mascot. You take a mascot with you.
Well, it's either going to have to be something to do with Manchester United, or it could be a greyhound.
And why Man U? Is Dave a fan?
He's very much a fan. He just went to he and Katrina, his partner, his wife just went to Munich for the 60th memorial service of the disaster. Yeah.
Yes.
He's a big fan of Man U, but they also have a beautiful honey-coloured greyhound, so it could be a greyhound.
Oh, nice. I need to understand. Yes, I wanted to talk to you about one of the points that you made before we get to fueling your fire. The thing about it being quiet, I've had a quiet week, you've had a quiet week, I put mine down to half term, but it's odd how disquieted we are about it when it's quiet. So we like it busy and we like to have lots to report. And you're slightly more than me, a little bit anxious when it's quiet. You don't like it like that. It's rainy, you've been at home, you haven't got a car. It's an odd thing, isn't it? We can't have a life that's always up, go, busy. We can't.
Well, the main challenge is it gives you nothing to talk to anyone about. So when I talk to the kids and they say, what have you been up to?
Yeah, I know. This is why I never really understand why people can chat to each other on the telephone. No. If you haven't got anything to say, why bother to ring? Most people's lives, particularly in not your version of the stupor life, but everybody else's version of the stupor life, is, same old, peaceful. Sometimes we go out to the taverna, sometimes we stay at home and cook.
Yeah. Read, watch telly, sleep.
Quite. Not terribly newsworthy, is it? I mean, if I've got news, like the day I fell over, I rang everybody up and sent everybody an email and told them, it's all right, I've had a near-death experience, but I'm alive. If you haven't got news, shut up.
Oh my God. In those times, in those quiet times, I always like to have something to fuel my fire.
Yeah, so you tell me about your fire first.
Well, there's two things really. One is I've been reading Crushing It by Gary Vaynerchuk, which
how's that going?
Lots of lovely stories of people who've taken action, and that's always very heartwarming for me, and who've had a success from it. And when you think back to another of our events, which was at the that place in near Grosvenor Square. What was that place called? Where we did the Brett McFall Money Gym Internet
Day? Yes. The Cavendish Conference Centre.
That's it. I like that place. That was really good. And then the other thing I've been doing this week, oh my God, it's been so frustrating. I've got a new done-for-you client who is a trader. He's a very successful stock trader. In fact, I'm getting a little bit interested in technical trading, but just looking at his books and things. But he's about to have a baby, lots of money. He's not short of a bob or two, lives in Spain. We've had the most frustrating, I honestly thought people like this had gone out with Yark. I said, I need access to your website. Is it WordPress? I said, I just need to be able to make things like thank you pages and stuff like that. And he said, no, you have to. And he introduced me to his techie, who seemed very helpful. And it wasn't a WordPress website. It was an ancient, like an HTML website. I said, oh my God, I haven't made a HTML page for a long time. And he said, well, I don't really want to give you access to the server. So I thought, okay, well, I won't be able to upload pages then. So I said, okay, so, all this is by email, back and forth. I said, okay, so could you make me a WordPress installation on a subdirectory? And he said, doesn't sound like a problem, I'll do that. And then he said, I'll give you FTP access and you can do it. And I said, no, I haven't done this for so long, I really wouldn't want to do it. I'd rather you did it. Here's where you can download the WordPress folders and you just upload them your end. And he came back and he said, that's completely overloaded the whole site. And it turns out that he's been advising this chap who makes weekly videos to actually upload and store his videos on his own website, which has completely taken up all the bandwidth. And now installing WordPress tipped it over the edge into the next thing. The host was trying to charge him lots of money. A week went past on this, Judith, a whole week on this nonsense about. And then he finally came back. He said, no, I've uninstalled all the WordPress stuff. You'll have to find another way. I just thought, this is just nonsense. So it doesn't go well. It doesn't go well for you when you have to work with a techie between you and the client. It never has done. Now, because I offer this done for you service, which is end to end done for you, I now have to go and I have to buy this chap a domain name. I have to install WordPress. I have to put enough content on it so it looks like a real website. In effect, it's another 300 to 500 quid's worth of work, just because he's working with a techie who is so out of date, it's unreal. Okay, so there was an assumption there, wasn't there? There's another box that needs to go on the intake form. Have you got this and this? And if the answer is no, there's another 300 to 500 quid on the bill. But people don't want to pay it. Well, they don't want to pay it. It's a problem that you've identified. A real problem here is never assume. There's been an assumption, that everybody's more modern than that, and they're not. And the really scary thing about that sort of arrangement, and I come across this endlessly with my clients, is that it's the blind leading the blind. So if the client doesn't understand anything about onlineness, a bit like your lovely glamorous American lady who thought she still had to scan things, if they don't understand and they can't adapt quickly to the new knowledge and they're fossicking about in the dark and they feel disadvantaged, then their techie has them over a barrel. Yeah, and it's telling them, you're telling them white is black, and the tech is telling them black is white, and they don't know who to trust, and they're squeezed in the middle, and it's horrid. Yeah, absolutely. I haven't said a word about his techie to him. I thought if he's happy with him, he can stay with him. So but then that involved, swapping of credit cards. I've had to do a load of work. It's just tedious. Yeah. How has this fueled your fire? It sounds like you want to top yourself with something like this. Because I'm now at the point. Well, the good news is the client has been busy. I mean, I'm not joking, his baby's due any minute, but he's still been busy making. Yes, he's a man, so we don't need to worry about that too much. Yeah, he pops to the hospital occasionally. Yeah. But he's been making videos, and so at least when I get to the point of having a website to work with, which I now have, I've got lots of content to do the Be Everywhere Online system with him. And he is very good at talking to video, which is great. He's a real natural. He's been doing YouTube videos. He's got like 250,000 views on his YouTube channel. So, and what's the point of this for him? He wants more customers for his trading business, or what? No, he wants to be able to advertise on Facebook. And Facebook, because his website is covered in lots of trading stuff like binary options and cryptocurrency and stuff like that, Facebook have banned any advertising of anything like that at all. It's their latest app. So basically we're coming at it from the point of view of he's an author, he's got 9 books, something like that. And what's he advertising for, though? More clients for his day tradership? Yeah, well, we're bringing them in on the front end, on the success thinking end, because he's actually got one book on wealth creation and one book on... Sorry, I'm still not understanding what he does. What does he want from this Be Everywhere Online thing? What's his goal? More sales of his courses. Ah, courses. Okay, good. Yes, okay, courses. But got it. So he wants people to learn how to do it themselves. Yes, exactly. Yes, okay. So, but I have to come at it from a different angle because of the fact that his website would set off alarm bells at Facebook. Because I quite understand it. Got it now. I just didn't understand what he was trying to flog by this at the end. While it has been frustrating and has delayed the whole thing by a week, I am fueled by the fact that he is turning out the videos, so I am going to be able to have a very good impact on Facebook. And got you. So you're fueled by having a client who's a content creator. Yes, that's exactly what I'm by. What about you? I've got there. Oh well, I've had a funny. I don't know. I'm up to 17 out of my 52 published blog posts, with 6 weeks to go until the 31st of March, which is my own self-imposed deadline. And honestly, it wouldn't matter if it took a bit longer or involved more than 52 people. It's mostly an interesting exercise. 2 or 3 people, very sweet, underconfident, send me their blogs to read, and typically they're always absolutely fine. The people that make me
look at their content in advance, they're better than some of the people who just bang them up, typically. Yeah. But what it is giving me, I'll tell you what it's giving me, because in the back of my mind there's a possibility, a remote possibility, that I might find a way to turn it into an anthology. As I put up each blog post, I'm sort of adapting it to a house style, so that if we ever lift them all and put them into an ebook, it's ready to go already. Nice. So it's giving me some fascinating challenges with people's punctuation. It's reminding me that I know this about myself, I overuse brackets. But the biggest edit I'm having to make to everybody's post, not yours, I don't think, but I would say more than 80%, 90% probably, is that everybody overuses quotation marks, either in ones or twos, and they put them around words which aren't. So constantly around my book, they put "your biz, your way" in quotes. That doesn't need to happen. They also put a comma in the middle of "your biz, your way," which I didn't deliberately. So I apologise to them, and I blame Grammarly, which is mostly true. But because of this house style issue, I've turned into the grammar police, quite frankly. It's a strange old thing. So when I send it back to them, I say, "Look, I've done my bit. Here it is." I've fiddled about with it a bit, because some of it's honestly riddled with the overuse of brackets, quotation marks, and commas, and dots, and endless amounts of extraneous punctuation. Really.
Yeah, I'm a shocker for that dot thing. I always do put books in inverted commas, though. Should you not?
Why?
Because
inverted commas mean speech marks. Somebody saying something.
Oh, right. Okay. What's the other one when it's a single comma thing?
No idea. No idea.
That's
I don't know what that one is. Well, no, people do that as well. They do both, actually. Some people do both.
But I think the book name needs to be in bold or something. It needs to say...
I agree. I agree. I think, actually, italics is probably the best thing for something that's somebody else's thing. I do often bold it, but they've often bolded it, underlined it, hyperlinked it, and put a comma in the middle and put quotation marks around it. So that, honestly, it's too much.
Right.
So I'm loving the Blogfest, and it's giving me some interesting grammar police challenges.
I am enjoying them. I'm reading them, all of them, and it is fascinating.
Well, it's the same as crushing it. People like a story, don't we? That's the thing. We like a story, even a sort of shaggy dog story that goes nowhere when I'm trying to work out, what you just said to me about your day trader and Anne the 70s, the Anne the 70s style model with her tolerations list. We like a story.
Here at Own It, we personally believe that leaders are readers, but sometimes it's just not convenient to read and you'd rather listen instead. For listeners of Own It the podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. A couple of titles we've picked out for you particularly are Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg or Crush It, Why Now is the Time to Cash In on Your Passion by Gary Vaynerchuk. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/ownit. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ownit for your free audiobook. You can pick one of the ones I've chosen for you, or you can choose something else. Enjoy your listen.
Let's get on to focus of the week then.
Yeah, you're going to start?
Hang on, wait. Sticky keyboard alert. Right. Focus of the week. Well, this started, didn't it? Because you popped up and said, what's the focus of the week? And I started thinking, I wonder if it's still my turn, because I seem to recall that you did the first 100 and I thought I'm probably in the next 100 and was still there. And it felt like, as it felt for you, quite a chore to come up with new ideas, especially as I also have to come up with them for my own VZ.
And it was a terrible burden, Nicola. A terrible burden.
Well, I don't know about the word terrible is a bit strong, but it did feel a bit like a little burden. So we had a conversation, didn't we, on Facebook about what on earth can we do to keep this section going, because people don't send us in their challenges. We've pretty much talked about everything over the last 150 odd episodes. Do we go back to the beginning and work through it again? Do we try and rack our brains for client challenges? And I thought, well, my client challenges are quite ongoing, the same. So you can only milk that for so much, can't you? So then we were thinking how we could change it. And suddenly you lit up, went on fire and came up with a load of ideas.
Well, it took me quite a long time, actually. I mean, although I was supposed to be having most of yesterday off, I couldn't really settle because we hadn't got a topic for today, and also it was a problem, wasn't it? Because we were emailing and PMing for 48 hours, and why I always nudge you on Tuesday before the Thursday is because if I know we've got a challenge of the week, I can relax a bit. I always diarise, prepare for the podcast, and even if I don't know what it is, I like to know that you've got one because I'm just part of my relaxing thing. But I don't think I was on fire really so much as I remembered that one of my clients, Nicola, who is a listener to this, has come up with this thing called her manifesto, and it's 24 points long. It's a very long blog post, and she's clearly thought about the things that are, the ground rules, the givens in her business, in her way of doing business. And then she's listed them, and then she's written a little bit more about each of them. I said, well, we could do a manifesto. And you said you've got half a manifesto or a sort of manifesto somewhere, and I haven't got one. But it wasn't an overnight solution, because if I was going to create that document like Nicola's done, I would have to take about a month over it. And you've been nudging me for ages to say, well, let's discuss Michael Neal. No, I'm not ready because I haven't finished digesting it. So we did have a couple of things, but they weren't quite right for today. And then I don't know where my loose women idea came from. Oh, yes, I do. It came from that thing that Marion and I used to do with the blogging, where, lots of clients say to me, blogging takes me hours. And I say, well, you might try this thing that Marion and I used to do, where you open up the back end of WordPress and you set your timer for 33 minutes and you go off and look for a topic and you write it and you save it and you tidy it and you publish it and you do everything in 33 minutes. It's a sort of exercise, really, and you do it for a month or 3 until you get good at writing shorter on the hoof blog posts. And not every blog post should be written by that. I mean, I know lots of experts who recommend fewer blog posts that are longer think pieces that are well SEO'd and all that kind of thing. It's back to that discussion at the beginning about what's professional and what's on the hoof, which is more our styly, I think. And then I don't know why that made me think of Loose Women, which I've never seen in my life, but which I know enough from the column of doom, as I call it, on the left-hand side of the Daily Mail news app, because there's always Stacey Solomon said this and Janet Street Porter said this. Even though I've never seen the programme, I know roughly what goes on there. And I did think that we could, in some weeks, just live open up Facebook or whatever and just scroll until we found something that was newsworthy, and we could talk about that. And what was the third idea? I've forgotten my third idea already.
Guests.
There was Guests, yes. Let's have people in the 20 minutes. And I've always been against that because there didn't seem to be room. And it's quite a rare thing for you and I to actually run out of stuff to talk about. But I thought between those 3 ideas, we could always find something.
Yes, we could.
Or certainly we would have 3 things to fall back on, and in any week where we couldn't find a topic.
And I think we should, if we're going to have guests, we should, the thing I'm finding about doing it with Right Club is that you need to it's quite hard to corral your guests into a shorter time frame, but you can edit afterwards. So would, rather than, we could record it certainly on this Thursday morning live with us there, or we could record it and have them in the bank, as it were.
We could either do a batch of them, but I'm going to be very strict about the 20 minutes.
Yes, I think you should. And also I think batching them would be fantastic, because then it would be so much easier for me in the edit rather than
Okay. We will batch them, and then what we would do, and actually what I think we've got to do is not something that is our natural inclination. Our natural inclination is to interview them or to get them to bring a challenge for us to solve. Let's do that. Let's give them 2 minutes to talk about their business, and then let them talk about anything like Loose Women styly, this week, like we do in these beginning and ending sections. It may turn into a challenge or a focus, or it may not, but in 18 minutes they've only really got one thing to talk about, because time goes very quickly. We've burned half an hour already, for instance.
I feel that rather than let them talk about anything, I think we should give them guidelines about what they can. I think it should be something that they observe.
Well, it's got to be one topic. So we can make it focus of the week, challenge of the week, but it doesn't need to be, given that we're loosening up a bit, it doesn't need to be a challenge.
No, but it should.
It could just be something I noticed in my business this week.
Something businessy or digital nomady. I think we've got to keep it quite tight in terms.
Well, they're going to be self-employed people, so they're going to be interested in talking about the same things that we are. Let's just see how it goes. Let's not be too restrictive at the beginning. No. We've just got one to say. It's got to be about business or internet marketing. Your thing or my thing is, I think, might naturally be that. But let's just be a bit. Let's just give them. We don't have to use them. Let's say that we won't necessarily use them if you bring a topic that we can't make fit. But 20 minutes is nothing, is it, to spend with somebody to see if we can come up with something that could be slotted in.
Yeah, don't you think 20?
I think let's just be prepared to have an open mind. Yeah. Okay, let's not be too restrictive. No, it can only be one thing, because 18 minutes isn't very long to discuss a thing.
I think we should make it 10 minutes because I think 20 minutes to talk for 20 minutes is quite daunting.
No, they won't talk for it. It'd be the three of us talking for that.
Oh, right.
It's the middle slot. Don't forget, this chunk is usually about 20 minutes in the middle, isn't it?
Yeah.
They won't be talking for 18 minutes. The three of us will be talking for 18 minutes, but we won't be interrogating them like coaches or trying to solve their challenge.
No.
It could be Lucy women-ish, or Lucy men-ish around an issue, that may or may not be a challenge.
And I also think it will help with our listenership because the thing we're finding on Right Club is by having guests on, of course, they then share it with their listenership. So it's growing our listenership.
In theory, yes. But let's see.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I love that. I love the idea that we've got three things to rotate between. I love the idea of doing...
Well, don't forget, we'll still have the other ones as well. Occasionally you'll say to me, I have got a challenge or a focus of the week, or I will. So we'll have 4 altogether, but we've got 3 backups, which I think is quite useful.
Yeah, nice. I like it a lot. I think it's an interesting thing because, I'm always trying to get my clients to create content. And I think the one thing that really scares them is the not knowing what to talk about. So having, having a batch of things that you can suggest is a really handy thing.
Well, I think actually I did say, and I put it in the group, I did say I'll help you. If you're struggling to find a topic, I'll help you because just a little conversation with them, I could, there'll be something they want to talk about.
Yeah.
I suspect as well there'll be listeners who've been saying, I've listened to all 169 episodes and I've been gagging for you to talk about such and such, and I'm going to come on and talk about it, because it's a bit like that unsolicited feedback at the beginning, isn't it? Maybe there are issues that it hasn't even, I'm sure there are issues that hasn't even occurred to us to talk about because it's outside our kind of way of thinking.
Yeah. It's sort of like a TED talk with discussion after, isn't it?
Oh, nice. That's a nice idea. I wasn't thinking of them talking like, addressing the crowd. I was thinking of the 3 of us would have a conversation, but they would bring the theme and we would try to avoid coaching and solving and interrogating because that's what we always go. Well, that's where we always go. We go to interview because we've done so many of these things where we interview people.
Yeah. It's quite difficult to interview someone without coaching, interrogating.
Well, no, that'd be good for us, won't it? It doesn't mean we can't ask questions. It just means they're not coming to be sorted out by us. They're coming to have a conversation with us.
Yeah. Okay, I like
from
that.
Which we might learn something. Not that they're coming, and we might help them. And sometimes it might be that way around. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. So how are we going to kick this off then?
Today, you mean?
Well, no, how are we going to kick it off? Well, today we're just talking about what we're going to do and alerting our listeners there might be an opportunity. So how...
Well, I've alerted them. I put it in the Facebook group last night, inviting people. I've had 2.
And do we, for people listening who are not in the Facebook group, do we want them to email us or come and join the Facebook group and then...
I'd like them to join the Facebook group. It's not that difficult. If you're not on Facebook because you hate Facebook, does that rule them out?
Not at all, I don't think.
No, then come to our website. Come to our website and use the contact form.
Yes, onlyatthepodcast.com and /contact. That'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so are we done on this topic or?
Well, we could try a loose women experiment.
Okay. Oh God, yes, let's do that. It'd be great fun.
Okay. Now with this, bear in mind we're at 10:07. You might have to do some editing on this later.
Yeah. Okay.
So that looks interesting. Uber lost 4.5 billion last year, but the new CEO, Dara, is not worried. So there's a new CEO of a business that lost 4.5 billion, and he's not worried. We can turn the knobs to get this business even on a full basis profitable. And now, you see, I've never used a Uber in my life, and they banned them from London. I'm not quite sure whether the bans... And where?
I think Brighton as well.
It's interesting because Uber, like Airbnb have been either have been banned or have been threatened to be banned in New York, and both of them are models that displace. A bit like you're saying about your model lady, Anne. It's the equivalent of you don't have to scan anymore. You take a photograph. You don't take a black taxi anymore or risk a dodgy minicab. You call an Uber. It's a modern way of doing things that have threatened the existing business model of taxi drivers and landlords, and people don't like it happens, they used to say on. Yeah. So I don't know. What do you think about Uber and Airbnb?
The main thing about Uber, I have occasionally tried to book an Airbnb, and it's turned out to be not any less expensive than getting a hotel. So I actually prefer going to a hotel with a reception and a bar and a restaurant and things. So I've never yet found an Airbnb that was better than a hotel. But I know that there must be some. There are an awful lot of them in Stupa, actually, even though it's technically not very legal.
Now that's interesting. Why is it technically not very legal in Stupa?
Because people are Airbnb-ing their apartments, and the government can't keep track of it for tax purposes.
Well, there you go. You see, this is why this is why the bans are imposed, is because governments can't collect tax on it.
Well, and it is, and also regulate. They like to regulate everything because that stops people doing anything so that they can't tax it. On this is actually really interesting. On the Uber thing, it's all about not having to have cash on you. So you put a card into Uber, you call the Uber, you don't have to worry about tips, you don't have to worry about having enough money on you. It's all just done on your card.
But all London black taxis take credit cards now, and have done for ages.
But then you still have to have the whole thing of, do I tip, don't I tip, have I got the cash for the tip? That excruciating embarrassment bit where the taxi driver indicates.
Well, can't you do that? I mean, most tips in restaurants, you put your tip on your card, don't you?
Yeah, but then it doesn't go to the person who's served you. I never do put tips on cards. Well,
that's not necessarily true, by the way. Speaking as an accountant to restaurants, that isn't necessarily true.
Well, lots of people here don't get the tips. It goes to the taverna owner.
Okay, so you do have cash on you for tips when you go to a restaurant, but you don't necessarily when you're in the UK for a taxi.
Yes, exactly.
I agree with you. Cash is a pain in the bottom. When I go to the beauticians, I have to go via the motorway service station to get the cash to pay her. I would rather pay her online. My hairdresser lets me pay her online. Yeah. I do think cash is a problem. Yeah.
All services here are cash. So apart from restaurants. This article isn't about that, though. This article is about, this was interesting. It's interesting. We can turn the knobs to get this business, even on a full-time basis, profitable, but you would sacrifice growth and sacrifice innovation. So what they're saying is that in order to keep it growing and innovating, they have to reinvest profits rather than pay them to their dividend shareholders. That's what he's saying, isn't it?
Okay, all of it. There's no split. Normally you do both.
No, exactly. Yes, exactly. But I think. Well, let's click through, shall we? As this is a loose women kind of affair, and it is a business.
Okay, it's on your screen. So
basically the question is, how much of your profits do you plough back into?
Well, normally that's something you get your shareholders to vote on at a board meeting.
Well, let's have a talk about it from a small business point of view, because in my experience, not many small businesses plough anything back into growth and innovation. They want to
all of it,
profits and pay themselves, don't they?
Or all of it. And some people don't have a choice because they don't make enough, so they've got to take it all.
Yes, good point. Okay, it's Uber's commitments to developing new markets that are dragging things down, but he views that as an optional investment. However, it's the right thing to do. The company won't stop investing in Asia anytime soon, so everyone's focusing on the Far East at the moment. I know lots of people who are flying out to Singapore and Hong Kong to open up markets there right now.
Is Uber in both of those places? Because the traffic in both of those places is a ball, and you'd be better off on the tube.
Okay, so revenue last year was 7.5 billion. He wants to have a 40 billion run rate. I don't know what that means.
Measurement of total transactions on the platform. He also spoke of more than 100% revenue growth rate. It's big numbers, isn't it? And I think perhaps, I don't know, if I was them, would I consolidate for a bit before rushing forward? And I suppose in their line, if you don't rush forward and grab the markets first, some other Johnny-come-lately will come along and steal it from you.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose that's why, startups, all the focus on startups is not on making a profit initially. It's on fast growth because you want to get market share. I remember reading, it wasn't focused by Al Rees, but it was one of those old school business books. In fact, I've always quite enjoyed reading those, where they were talking about becoming the Tampax and the Hoover of your market sector.
Yeah.
And how getting first to like we talk about Googling things. That's how you know that the brand has well, I suppose they're hoping we'll talk about Ubering things.
Ubering. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's bring it back down to our listenership. So the real question,
I think this thing about rushing ahead for market share is scarce, and I think one would be better serving a smaller, content market. But actually, they've got threats on all sides. If various governments in various key places don't want them, they're firefighting, aren't they?
Well, much as I hate to mention the cryptocurrency word, they are also struggling because governments are trying now to clamp down on them because they don't want a centralised currency.
No, and neither do I. So I'm quite pleased about that. And I could see that's coming. And that's why I was so anti it from the beginning.
Well, let's not talk about a pro or against, but the whole thing about governments are terrified of things that they can't control, because and big banks are terrified of things they can't control, and people don't.
This is why we've got to be more political, Nicola. And I know you don't want to be more political, but everything comes down to the power that's wielded by governments and banks.
Yeah, well, I'm rapidly becoming more political because I'm learning about it.
Yeah, and also it has an impact on us, because when I said to you earlier in the week, the ever shrinking and impoverishment of the middle classes, which is our client base, it's pertinent to us. This is pertinent to us because, poor people have never been able to afford us, and increasingly middle class people can't because of the twin actions of banks and governments. Sorry, but there you go. And loose women, of course, is more political. So we might need to be aware that when we have a loose women week, it might get more political.
So there's the thing, but people will always buy what they want, not what they need. And when you say people can't afford us, I think people choose to afford things that they want rather than things that they need. Your average person is totally disinterested in personal development. They are totally disinterested in becoming more successful. They don't believe it's possible. They wouldn't know where to start, and they don't even think about it half the time. I mean, I'm noticing Phoebe's going through a phase where she's not interested in doing anything with her YouTube channel right now. She said, quote, "I can't be asked." She's doing my editing for me, but she's totally disinterested in doing her new Birchbox video. She's come to a sort of plateau of motivation, and I'm not sure that, I think she's just representative of most people. They're not, as long as they can chug along and they're earning enough and they get to have their fun and go out with their friends. And, I think so many people are not. That's the issue we're facing, is apathy rather than not being able to afford us. And
do you know what I think that means for us? I think it means the writing's on the wall. And like Lucy Whittington and that post I showed you yesterday where she's gone into a completely different business model altogether, the writing is on the wall, and we probably need to get out sooner or later of personal development.
Would you say that you're in personal development? Because I wouldn't say I am.
Yes. No, I am. You're not. You're less than me, you are. But it still underpins it all, doesn't it? Everything is, what are your things? Marketing, money and mindset. Your mindset it underpins everything, personal development. And it's more crunchy in self-employment than in anything else. So, yes, vaguely we are. Where people are investing with you and me, they're investing in improving their lot. And it seems to me that that's a harder and harder sell than it's ever been in all the years that I've known you, since 2002. And I think yesterday, how I spot trends in advance? Yesterday, when I was thinking through all of this, I think the writing's on the wall here. I think that we need to do a Lucy Whittington.
I totally disagree. Totally and utterly 100%.
Well, you said to me something, actually, and you might want to edit this out, but you said something like, we're not in front of enough eyeballs yet. And I thought, well, how much longer do we need from 2002 until 2018?
Yeah, but we're doing what this article talks about. We are in this place in a business growth. Every business has this place where you're not, especially if you're bootstrapping it and you haven't got an investor, to make the leap between making enough profits to live on and making enough profits to reinvest in marketing to grow the business. It's a rock and a hard place, that is, and it's been
our personal challenge, together and separately, for 2 from 8 is 16 years and more, and it's our clients' perpetual challenge as well, and that has a knock-on effect on us. And I think it goes with the territory of being self-employed. I don't think we're in a growth situation. We're solopreneurs trying to employ ourselves.
And I think that's the challenge, because if we were looking at this from a business point of view, I mean, I was looking at Social Chain the other day, which is a company very much like Guy Levine's Return on Digital, now called Return. It's those kind of companies do not at any stage think this is a self-employed business, this is a freelance business. They always come at it from this is going to be a big business, and big businesses need certain things. They need marketing, they need sales, they need investment. Otherwise, it's not going to work. These are things that have to be in place for a business to grow. So I think that's the issue, is perhaps that we're trying to sell to people who never want to become a bigger business, so will never invest in marketing and sales. And I just think that's where the shift needs to be. Either we need to, I am going after different clients. I want to go after more clients like my man who wouldn't dream of making his own website and delegates it all and expects it to be done because he's at the next level. And I'm not saying that's better or worse. I'm just saying that it's there are certain rules that work in certain marketplaces.
And I think Guy Levine is an exception because he was always a very ambitious man from a teenager.
Yes, he was. Yes, and he is. And then you've got Chris Barrow, who flip-flops backwards and forwards and probably is never going to be in a business again because he hates it so much.
Yeah,
When he's in a team, he's perfectly happy with the lifestyle business that he controls 100%.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to do marketing and sales because he's been around for 20 years. Everyone knows who he is. He's got a really high profile. And that is the only option for someone, which brings me back to, why I'm so passionate about the Be Everywhere Online thing that I've stumbled across accidentally, because if you're not going to spend on marketing and sales, then you have to have something that makes you high profile like that. And the only thing that can do that is creating content on social media. And that's time intensive, but it's the only option you've got.
I think he does do marketing and sales.
Who, Chris?
Yeah.
Yes, he goes and speaks, doesn't he? That's his thing, and he's got a book.
Well, and he blogs every day. He's all over social media. He's one of those people that tells you where he's checking into hotels, and we follow his entire life online.
Yeah, and that's great. He's doing that, but a lot of people don't want to do that. But they don't realise that if they don't want to do that, they have to then spend on advertising and marketing because business can't survive without it.
Yeah, but you're right. But you're do you want to spend the rest of your life persuading people that you're right?
No, I want to go and find people who don't need persuading, and that's where I'm focusing.
Well, there you go. That's an interesting distinction, and let's stop there because that's a marvellous note to end on.
It is, and oh my God, we got quite passionate there.
Yes, we did. The loose women model is gonna shake this program up. Yeah, it is.
Well, we need to get some guests on, though, because then we can break up the Loose Women weeks with the...
Well, then it'll take even longer, the Loose Women. I'm going to call this week's episode the Loose Women Model.
Okay. Right, word of the week, then.
Yeah, mine's healing because I've been poorly. And as a result of this, I've been taking aloe vera, apple cider vinegar, and doing some tapping. That's working, but of course I've no idea what's working because I'm not doing it scientifically. I don't know which one of those three or whether it's the combination of those three that's working. But my word of the week is healing.
It should be split testing.
Yes, I know it should be, but, I can't be doing with that.
Yeah. My word of the week is voice. And I'm saying that. Was it you that told me about Amazon Polly, or was it someone else?
The lady that does the SEO on my website, Charlotte, she showed me that article, and then I put it in our Facebook group, our podcast Facebook.
And never one to turn down a challenge. I've installed it on Swagger and Soul, and I've been thinking about it quite a lot. It took a long time to index 43 articles, which are quite wordy because it's a story-based website. But I was thinking while I was doing it, how incredible this is going to be for SEO, and how every website is going to have to be voice enabled at some point, in the same way that they're pushing the security, the HTTPS. They will it's about accessibility. And the other thing is that if we accept that, as Gary Vaynerchuk bangs on endlessly, that everyone's going to be using these home gadgets and going, hey Alexa, find me a short story website where I can listen to the stories, that's going to be quite interesting. And the other thing, from a writing point of view, it was interesting because it told me where I needed to put more commas or where my punctuation or grammar wasn't right. Because when you listen to someone reading your stories out or your blog posts, so the only thing is I tried to do it on my nicolacairncross.com, and I wasn't convinced that it wasn't going to mess with my podcast feed, because some of my...
Can you explain to me the Amazon Polly? I mean, I can't listen. I've been to the Swagger and Soul and I've tried to listen to that. Yeah. Okay. And it's not, I can't listen to that. I could read my blog posts out into my audio boom, and I could even put a player on each blog post. But I think is Amazon Polly the SEO angle here? So should I have that even if nobody ever listens to it?
I think it's about people who are listening to voice-enabled gadgets, like in their cars. I think your website will become invisible to voice-enabled gadgets. So if you're in your car, if someone's on Alexa and they go, find me a short story thing, they're not going to find a blog that features short stories that won't read it out loud to them. So I think...
No, what I'm saying, what if I read it out loud? What if there's a player? Yes. Do I need to be in the Amazon Polly group? No, or will they find it if I've read my blog post out in my own voice and put a little player on each post?
That's a great idea, and I think
so do I.
In fact, Sarah said to me when we started Swagger and Soul, when we were doing it together, she made us both read it out.
I've put that in a reply to you this morning. I can't listen to this, and am I having a false memory, or did you and Sarah both read this out at the beginning?
We did, and the reason you can't listen to it is because it's a mechanised voice. But actually, choice of voices. If you're a blind person, you'd rather listen to a slightly mechanised voice than no voice at all. So
I agree. I agree with that.
It's becoming more accessible, and I think that eventually, especially as this is an Amazon initiative.
Well, that's what I was asking. Is the Amazon Polly angle the key bit here because of the Amazon-ness of it?
Yes, I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it's about accessibility. I think it's about Amazon Voice, Amazon and Google Voice going head-to-head with Siri. I think it's all about the trying to bring 1/3 of the population in who can't read blog posts. I think and the beauty of it was a little bit tricky to set up because, except I already had an Amazon S3 account, because you need to store this audio somewhere. It generates the audio and you have to store it somewhere yourself. But let me tell you, it took me an hour to set it up. It wasn't bad. And it told me that for 43 stories, it was going to cost me $1 to get, you pay for the storage of the audio on your Amazon S3 account, but it's pennies.
Yeah.
And the plugin was free, so I would certainly do it.
There's another question here. Does it put that little playery thing on there for you on each post at the top?
Yeah. And if you alter one of your blog posts, so for example, if you listen to it and you realise that you needed to put an extra comma in or something, you just hit refresh and it goes through and refreshes any blog post you've changed. It's so easy to use.
Unfortunately. And can you do it with all my blog posts from now on rather than all the historic? Because I've got 1,250. If it took days for you 43, how long is it going to take to do my 12?
Judith, unless you're going to do your audio yourself going forward, because I'm not convinced that. Actually, I think it would be fine. I think it would have the Amazon Polly audio at the top. Then it would have your own audio. You could have listened to it in the author's voice.
Yes, exactly.
But I honestly think it'd be worth doing, because I think from an SEO point of view, websites that have got this will be favoured over websites that don't. In the same way, websites that have got HTTP.
So should we do it for Own It then?
Well, we've already got audio on Own It. We don't need more audio, do we?
But that's not on Amazon Polly.
But I'm not convinced that they won't be favouring websites with audio. Podcast is voice. I think they've already got it.
Okay.
But I need to find out more about that.
Okay.
I'll investigate further. But if you've got a website where you don't want to read your own blog posts out, or where you've got so many blog posts you certainly don't want to think about it, I would definitely look at putting Amazon Polly in. And as I say, the most complicated bit was setting up an S3 account and putting in the key and the secret key. And once that was done, it just took a while to do the, rendering, I think you call it.
Yes,
rendering.
Yes.
Okay, project updates.
You go first.
I've got a big blanket. I thought we were going to talk about the podcast. You were asking me all sorts of questions about the podcast last night. about our listenership.
Oh, yes. I don't know whether you'll want me to say this on air, but I'll say it and you can edit it out if you don't want me to. I just asked you one question, actually, which is what's our all-time download figure? Have you got that handy? 65. It was 65,000. Yeah. And if you divide that by 168 episodes, that was 391 people per hour-long episode. And I just had a look at and compared it to my tiny blog post where I've had 1,820 downloads divided by 26 episodes, which was 70. I only get 70 compared to our 391, but I only do it for 5 minutes, and we do it for not just an hour. We do it for an hour together, an hour separately, and some of Sarah's time. So I'm not sure that ours is a great return on the money and time expended.
Except that I have just attracted a client for entirely 100% from the podcast that's worth a lot of money to me.
Okay, bully for you.
And you have attracted clients from the podcast.
Yes, I'm not saying I haven't. I'm just saying that if you look at the efforts that we've put in across 168 episodes, times that's not 168 hours. That's each episode costs us the hour we are together. Yeah. The hour I do the show notes and prepare, the hour you do the editing and prepare, that's 3 hours. Whatever we pay Sarah to do, that's about 4 hours and cost. I think we need to review it as a business proposition. Have you gone? Can't hear you.
I'm thinking.
Yeah. Well, we can't think today. That's the point. It's too big. There's a lot of effort goes in for scant return, relatively speaking.
See, that we've had this conversation before, haven't we? And I think that if you look at it from the Dean Jackson point of view, which is client attraction, client fulfillment, client retention, client referrals, we make it easy for people to refer to us because they can say, just go and listen to the podcast. We are keeping existing clients happy. We're attracting new clients, and we're creating content that we could be leveraging these middle bits. And we haven't yet. So I just think that it ticks a lot of boxes for something that doesn't take very long and only takes, and that we quite enjoy. Well, we did until we ran out of things to talk about. We've found things to talk about. I can't think of a more enjoyable way of creating something that I'm very proud of and that attracts clients and makes existing clients happy and makes it easier for people to refer us.
All right, I hear what you say.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm coming at this only in that respect from an accounting perspective, and we do an hour, I do 5 minutes, and mine gets 5, for half the time. I'd need to multiply by mine by 5 minutes by half an hour to get the equivalent thing. Yeah. So I can achieve in half an hour what it takes us 4 hours to achieve.
One could argue that if we both stopped this and concentrated on our own podcasts, then we would do better. I know that I wouldn't do as good a job as we do with this, and I also know I'd be less likely to do it if I didn't have someone else.
I also think it's a different thing. I think they're completely, we can't compare them in the content, because two people having a conversation is more interesting than one person reading stuff. But, there are things that we could learn from each of them, I think, which is length. 80. I mean, I ignored, I created 19, wasn't it 19 originally, and then completely ignored them and went back and discovered that 1,600 people had listened to them. It's like, what? And they were 5 minutes long. So I don't know whether that's why, in fact, yesterday, one of our ideas was, when we don't have anything to say, let's just make a shorter show. Some people might like a shorter show. Who knows? The thing is, I tell you what I think about podcasting. It's such an imprecise science, Nicola. That's what's so annoying. Even that new thing the other day was inconclusive. Apple Analytics was. We had to end with a shrug on that one as well.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't accept that in any other form of marketing that we do.
Well, so it's interesting you say that, because, social media had no measurable return on investment for so very, very long. But everybody knows that if you don't do it, you're invisible in the world and you don't get any clients. And I had a really interesting conversation with someone yesterday who came back to me. They had a conversation last week about me. They've got a brand new business. They're a coach consultant, and they wanted to know what I could do for them in terms of marketing. And I said, well, I can hook you into a proven system that will bring you lots of what you want, which is one-on-one speaking engagements and one-on-one clients, and then sales of a product. I said, but it works best for the one-on-one consulting coaching kind of client thing. And they came back and they've gone off and they've investigated some other people, and they found someone else who's told them they could do that for less. And I said, oh, what are they going to do for you then? And he told me what they're going to do for me. I know it's not going to work because it just isn't enough of getting them out into the world. But there is quite an interesting tension there between needing this return on investment. I know that when I run a Facebook ad campaign, which I do all the time actually now, is I can't see that turns into clients because it happens outside a 28-day window that Facebook tracks, which I find deeply annoying. But I also know that when I speak to new clients, they say, oh, I listened to the podcast, I saw your V-zine, I came to your website and opted in and watched your webinar. So I know that it's all working. I just can't see it on paper.
I agree with you in principle. And I think where this goes back to that Uber article is that, accountants, which is half of who I am, need to see things in a certain way as well.
Yeah, they do.
Not instead of, but as well as. I the abundant me totally agrees with you, and it's fun and marketing. Who doesn't love marketing? Hurrah! But I do think we need to keep business activities under review.
Yeah, well, I agree, totally. Having just done that, yeah, totally. Anyway, who or what's impressed this week?
You go first, because I've got a feeling we're going to say the same thing.
No, we're not. I have been seriously impressed by a book I'm reading called Longbourn by Joe Baker, which is where I read a sample and I liked it, but I never really got around to ordering it. But one of my Right Club ladies said, I'm really enjoying it. And it's written from the perspective of the servants in the Pride and Prejudice story. So it's very little, it's about the servants who work in the Longbourn, which is where all the daughters are. And it's what happens behind the scenes in a great big fancy house in those days. Absolutely gripping. And the writing is beautiful. I keep reading phrases and thinking, oh, that's nice. That's nice. I like that.
You started to read like a writer.
Yes, I have. It's really strange. And I'm also reading, I'm also enjoying Altered Carbon, which is a brand new sci-fi series on Netflix, which I find out rather marvellously is written and directed by it's from a book. It's directed by a Greek female film director. And it's very stylish, it's very beautiful, it's very gripping, it's very fast-paced. And, we're all thrilled that it's a Greek lady that's done it.
I've seen it and skipped over it, obviously, but I did notice that the actor whose skin appears to be peeling off in the photograph that you see it was the one that was in the English-speaking version of The Killing, and I really liked him in that.
I loved him in that, and he's so hot in Altered Carbon. It's
unbelievable. He's a compelling actor. Actually,
he's a very compelling actor. I loved his laid-back style in The Killing. He was very low-key, laid back, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yes, he was mostly smoking in a duffel coat. Actually, that was his detective style.
Sloping about in a duffel coat, smoking. Yes, it's brilliant. I absolutely love it, and it's fantastic that it's a female director because it's doing very, very well on Netflix. What about you then?
Well, there's been nothing on the television for me since before Christmas, and this week 3 things. One was the David Letterman chat show on Netflix, which we both watched. Hurrah! Yeah. And at the return of the hour-long chat show with one guest and no interruptions, no making them do dancing tricks, no adverts. It's just, the only thing that's wrong with it is David Letterman's extraordinary beard. But his first guest was Obama, who I totally love, and the second guest was George Clooney, who I don't totally love, but he is an interesting man.
Yes, he is. And I love the fact that a lot of what he talked about was about his wife, who does such great work.
Yes, and then she came on and spoke in a cut-class English accent, which I thought was beautiful. Now, I do have other things to tell you here, but we've overrun horribly, so I'm going to save them for another day.
Okie dokes. Well, there you go. So, feedback, people. We would love some feedback. What do you think about all our ideas for keeping the show going? Give us some feedback about whether you think that the show helps us in terms of client attraction, retention, client, you referring us on. That's the things we need to know. Is it working or is it not? Speak to you later.
Okay, bye.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.